Hey everybody, thanks for coming to this presentation. These posters are all about ecological momentary assessment and passive sensing. So what's going on in people's real lives day to day. A really cool topic and some really cool talks to happen today. So I'm excited to see these posters, get a good look at them. I encourage you, after you see the posters, you should really reach out to the speakers to ask them for a download PDF of it, because I haven't been able to find the posters on the platform itself. So I'll say the name of each presenter, name of their talk, and then I'll ask them to present for 2 minutes. After that 2 minutes, we'll have 2 more minutes for people to raise their hand and ask questions of the presenters. And we'll go like that. And then hopefully at the very end, there'll be some more time for general questions. Okay, so first up, we have Jaisal Merchant. How do affect and memory for social approval in schizophrenia relate to daily socialization? Linking evidence from a novel behavioral task to real-world reports of social behavior. Okay, take it away.
Okay, and should I share my screen or just talk?
If you could share your screen, that would be great. Are you able to do that?
Perfect. Yes, it looks like I can. Hold on 1 second. And I will just make it full screen. Okay, let's see. Can you guys see like the actual full poster right now?
We could. Now we see the language. Like, I think if
see.
you
Swap again.
yeah, perfect.
You see this?
Mhm.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. So, hi, yes, I'm Jessel, and I am a clinical psychology PhD student at WashU. And I'll talk a little bit about a project that we did in people with schizophrenia versus healthy controls that aimed to examine how momentary affect and memory for positive and negative social experiences related to frequency of daily social behavior via ecological momentary assessment, or EMA. So for this project, we used a new computer task, the prediction of social liking task, or POSLET. And during this task, participants saw photos of peers who they were told were other study participants who had previously seen their photo and decided whether or not they thought they would like them. So the main variables from this that are relevant to the current project are peer opinion, so social approval, seeing that the peer thought they would like them, or social disapproval, seeing that the peer thought they wouldn't like them. And then affective response to that peer opinion on a scale of 1 to 5. How did their response make you feel? And then implicit memory for those positive and negative peer opinions. In terms of the results from the POSLET, as expected, groups didn't differ in their affective or emotional responses to those peer opinions. And we also didn't see overall group differences in memory for those peer opinions. What we did see is that in healthy controls, there was this positive bias in their memory for peer opinions, such that they were more likely to correctly remember when peers thought they would like them than dislike them. And we didn't see that bias in people with schizophrenia. When we linked this POSLET data to the EMA reports of daily social frequency, we saw that in healthy controls, those who got more pleasure from social approval also engaged in more frequent social behavior in their daily lives. And we didn't see that relationship in the schizophrenia group. What we did see in schizophrenia was that better memory for social disapproval was related to less frequent social behavior in their daily lives. So these findings align with literature that suggests that people with schizophrenia struggle to translate their intact momentary pleasure to motivated behavior for pleasurable experiences. And since most of that work's been done on non-social domains of reward and motivation, it extends this suggestion to the social domain. It also poses, and very speculatively, of course, the possibility that this positively biased memory for social approval and healthy controls could be protective for the pursuit of social activities. And that better memory for negative social outcomes could lead people with schizophrenia to kind of expect more negative outcomes from social experiences and inhibit them from pursuing social activities. And if that's the case, interventions that work to reframe people's perspectives, people with schizophrenia's perspectives of social experiences by highlighting the positive and de-emphasizing the negative components could enhance social functioning in this population. Thanks.
That was great. Thank you. So yeah, we have 2 minutes for questions if anybody has questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, first of all, I think the research is super cool, but I was wondering how you think that how you think people with other kinds of disorders, like within this frame, like schizoaffective disorders or other similar disorders, what their results would be on these outcomes.
That is a really good question. So I was saying schizophrenia, and kind of for the sake of time, I didn't present on our like actual sample, but it was a combination of people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. I think kind of one that comes up a lot in this domain is like a depression sample, right? I think a lot of when you're looking at like the negative symptoms of schizophrenia, we do a lot of comparison with depression. And I think kind of one key difference that it seems like there is in the literature is that, right, in schizophrenia, we see this intact kind of momentary experience of pleasure or emotion. And it seems like most of the deficits seem to be in kind of translating that to motivated behavior. So in this task, right, we saw that people with schizophrenia like got just as much pleasure from kind of seeing that peers thought they would like them as healthy controls did. But they just didn't that didn't translate to their daily motivated behavior. I think in like a depression sample, for example, we probably would see that reduced social behavior was maybe also like kind of related to reduced pleasure from hearing that people liked them and things like that, because in depression, we usually see that deficit kind of in the moment as well, and not just in that translation to motivated behavior. Does that answer your question? I know you asked about like schizoaffective specifically, and I took it in a different direction.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, my background is in depression research, so that
Oh,
definitely
cool.
tracks. Yeah, thanks for answering.
Of course, thanks.
Okay, Jessel, that was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So let's move on to the next speaker, Amira Parker, on self-reported interruptions in an ecological momentary assessment study of clinical and community samples, the role of sociodemographic and psychological characteristics.
All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see the poster? All right, great. Well, yes, I'm Amira. I am a post-bac RA at the Laboratory for Brain and Cognitive Health Technology at McLean. And today I'm excited to present some findings on an analysis that we conducted in order to learn more about self-reported interruptions during an EMA study of emotion and cognition. So we were thinking that a better understanding of when and why participants report interruptions may lead to a richer understanding of the context of our measures and contribute to data quality assessments. Characterizing interruptions may also give us insight into how participants behave while taking EMAs and might indicate experiences of burden or inability to complete an EMA from start to finish. We especially wanted to see if participant behavior during EMA varied by key sociodemographic and psychological characteristics in order to inform accessible study design for for participants with diverse lifestyles and diverse clinical and demographic traits. So we found that higher levels of depression and anxiety as measured by the GAD-7 and PHQ-8 at baseline, along with higher hypervigilance scores, were significantly associated with higher frequency of reported interruptions over the course of the 21-day study. We also found that having children under 18 in the home, as well as being of female gender, were associated with more interruptions. Hours employed a week and racial minority status did not have significant effects of frequency of reported interruptions throughout the duration of the study. Analysis of participant descriptions of interruptions revealed that while most participants were interrupted by a cell phone notification, participants' interpretation of an interruption seemed to vary significantly, which makes us realize that asking if a participant was interrupted during an assessment may also indicate a participant's understanding of the study procedures and their relationship with the study staff and their conscientiousness or propensity to report a deviation from study procedures. After that, we looked into emotional state at the time of EMA, and we found that feeling more alert was associated with a higher likelihood of reporting an interruption on that EMA. Feeling more inspired, excited, and enthusiastic were also associated with reporting an interruption on that EMA, but to a lesser degree. Overall, these findings suggest that there may be some non-random variation in the way participants encounter and report interruptions while taking an EMA assessment. We're excited to look into our findings related to state alertness and trait hypervigilance. We're also excited to conduct some thematic analysis of the participant descriptions of interruptions combined with analysis of survey timestamps to further characterize types and severity of interruptions and to see if these are associated with any person-level traits. Thanks.
That was great. Thank you, Amira. And questions for Amira?
I have a question again, if that's okay. I think this is a super cool poster. I know you mentioned like patient level traits and you're hoping to do some analyses there. I was wondering, do you think that personality traits, do you have data on that? And do you anticipate that there would be some sort of connection like between neuroticism and depression and these outcomes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we unfortunately don't really have baseline. During our baseline assessments, we didn't assess personality traits. We mostly assessed traits associated with a clinical psychopathology population. So I don't know if you can see here, but yeah, the PHQ, the ADHD scale, I guess hypervigilance questionnaire would be the only one kind of associated with personality or just not associated with a disorder. And stress too, I guess. But yeah, we didn't, I would love to assess neuroticism though, and conscientiousness came up after we did the analysis. So yeah, I do wish we had that data.
Yeah, maybe in the future you could do a follow-up study.
Yes, hopefully next time around.
I had a question if there's time as well. Great presentation. I was wondering, do you guys have access to like incomplete EMAs as well? Potentially like look at that side of the question.
That is a very good question. We do. Are you looking, or are you curious about like the scores on those incomplete EMAs, or what in particular are you curious?
I guess I'd just be curious, like how for those like that have like partial responses, if the same types of trends carry over that you're seeing in when people report an interruption versus like when they just stop halfway through or some not through.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because we do have that incomplete data, but I haven't really considered it because I was like, well, we're not going to be able to compare across participants, like compare the actual content of the answers, but comparing patterns in like which questions participants respond to. Like, is it just the multiple choice ones, or do they take time to respond to the open response or do any of the cognitive tests? If that's what you're saying, I think that will be really interesting. So thanks for bringing that up.
Cool. Thank you, Amira.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next talk from Minna, Behnan, and Licht, which is exploring the feasibility of Empatica E4 wearable biosensors. And please go ahead. I think you're muted, Minna.
Thank you for that. I just said that I hope everyone can see my screen. All right, so my name is Minna, Behnan, and this is my colleague Ava Licht. We are both clinical research coordinators with the Depression and Clinical Research Program at Mass General Hospital. But yeah, we can get started. So our current study examined the feasibility of the Empatica E4 risk sensor in the sense code study and of a data collection platform that was used to incentivize adherence during the study. So the Sensitive study aimed to develop a machine learning model, including physiological features obtained by the Empatica E4 risk sensor to estimate depressive symptoms in patients with major depressive disorder. So our sample included 98 individuals with MDD who were deemed eligible at the start of their time in the study. And of those 98 individuals, 59 participants completed the exit survey. So the exit survey was sent to participants at the end of their time in this study and asked about levels of comfort while wearing the E4, stress experienced while wearing the E4 in public, ease of use, wearing and uploading the E4. Additionally, at week 2, participants were given access to a feedback platform that displayed their activity level and sleep quality data alongside their depression severity levels.
And in terms of the study's findings, despite the majority of participants finding most aspects of using the E4 to be acceptable, almost half, or 42.4% of participants, reported that the comfortability of the E4 was unacceptable, and similarly, 45.8% of participants found difficulty in the uploading process of the data. Providing access to participants' data via our feedback platform did not serve as an additional incentive, given only roughly a third, or 34.7%, of our eligible participants ever viewed the platform. And then contrarily with previous studies, binary linear regressions in the current study showed that age, sex, and baseline depression scores measured by the Hamilton Depression Rating Scale were not significant predictors of whether a participant would complete the study or not. Lastly, because our sample included mostly participants who completed the study, our results may be skewed positively towards the E4, and participants who withdrew from the study prematurely might have had different experiences and perspectives to report.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. Any questions?
I have a question about the device itself. Cool poster. Thanks for sharing. I looked up a picture of it, and it's big, or it looks big in the pictures. Can you speak to that kind of form factor and what your participants, if anything qualitative came up about that, or if you, like, what did they say about it?
Yeah, there was a comment section that we didn't really delve into for this poster on the exit survey that did leave room for them to kind of have qualitative comments. I think anecdotally, a lot of participants found them to be bulky, not attractive. There's a newer version of the Empatica wrist sensor that looks a little bit closer to sensors that are on the market, like an Apple Watch or something. But for these E4s, they were a little bit bulky. We did assess and ask whether participants had stress wearing them in public, and that didn't seem to be a huge barrier, but there were some just qualitative anecdotal comments like that.
Totally. I think it's such an interesting thing to think about how the device, how comparable it is, how, like, could it be a Fitbit, right? Or could it be an Apple Watch? And like for this one, it seems like pretty clearly no. That's a really interesting factor. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both very much, Minna and Ava. By the way, sorry I pronounced your names wrong in the beginning. I should know better, being someone that gets my name pronounced wrong every single time. And I think I'm not done pronouncing names wrong either. So next time I'm going to ask beforehand about pronunciations. But okay, moving on to Lauren Finkelstein, who's presenting on links between hourly psychological stress instability and mental health insights from intensive smartphone data collection.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm Lauren Finkelstein. I'm a PhD student in clinical psychology at CU Boulder. And this poster is based on the idea that traditionally we tend to measure psychological experience by asking people how they're doing at one point in time. And we kind of gloss over that their experiences might be varying significantly across time, and that this instability might actually be pretty important to their psychological experience. And so this poster looks at hourly fluctuations in perceived stress and how they relate to mental health symptom burden. And I think stress and stability in particular is interesting to consider, since we know from the physiological literature that some level of instability might actually be healthy or adaptive. This kind of response, mid-range response to a situational demand, and then a return to baseline once the threat resolves, is associated with optimal outcomes. In terms of methods, we have 137 stressed individuals in Colorado, ages 18 to 45. They're actually participating in a probiotic RCT, and they completed 5 days of intensive smartphone data collection. And during those 5 days, participants received 8 hourly texts asking them to report on their in the moment or state stress level. And what we found is that people with worse mental health tend to experience more unstable stress levels over the course of the day, hour to hour. However, this effect is moderated by average state stress, such that individuals who in general tend to have higher levels of in-the-moment stress experienced worse mental health regardless of instability. And you can see exemplars of these profiles associated with worse mental health here in figure 2, and then exemplars associated with better mental health here in figure 3. You can see how even though, kind of the average level of stress might be pretty similar for, the moderate unstable versus the moderate stable individuals, their daily experiences of stress likely vary significantly. And so I think this data shows how digital data collection tools can help us to better understand these person-level differences and patterns of stress that do seem to have implications for mental health, and also demonstrate the potential value of quantifying instability in EMA designs. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren. That was great. Any questions? I have a quick one. Where does the average stress tend to be for people? Like, do most people have no stress or somewhere in moderate? What does it look like?
Totally. So this is a stressed sample. So they're selected for moderate to high levels of perceived stress. So it's definitely skewed toward the higher stress end. This is actually data from the end of the RCT, though, when stress had gone down significantly. So most people are right around the moderate stress mark.
What do you make of, if I'm understanding this correctly, this is very cool. If I'm understanding this correctly, you're actually finding something that is contradictory to some of the, we want to have a reactive, responsive cortisol system, and we want to see those. And you're seeing a picture where actually that self-reported is different in terms of the instability is associated with worse symptoms or whatever. Can you speculate wildly about that?
Totally. Yeah. So, this is perceived stress. And we know that perceived stress doesn't correlate it correlates, but not super strongly with different physiological measures of stress. So, I think there's the physiological response literature might not fully apply for that reason. And a lot of the questions on, a brief measure of perceived stress are things about kind of the extent to which you're perceiving your life, important things in your life as out of your control, something like that. And so affective instability tends to be associated with adverse mental outcomes. And so it might be tracking more with that literature where, if you're appraising your environment differently, kind of hour to hour over the course of a day in a dramatic way, there's probably, affective correlates to that as well.
Was there one more question? Was it Alessandro? Did you have one? Maybe not. Okay, we can go on to the next speaker. Thank you very much, Lauren.
Yeah.
So next up is Miyama Farouk, presenting on time in depression remission and affective functioning in everyday life. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, let me share my screen. Perfect. Okay, I'll be presenting my poster on time in remission and how it impacts affective functioning in everyday life. So we know that in depression, a lot of people's affective regulation and their cognitive functioning is impacted, but even in remission from depression, this impairment continues. So we wanted to examine whether the length of time in remission impacted affect and regulatory behavior across a week in everyday life. And we looked at 39 adults with remitted depression in Los Angeles. They completed EMA assessments 6 times a day for a week in their normal life, and each assessment included constructs to measure positive and negative affect regulation strategies, including mind wandering and perceptive thinking, as well as perceived regulatory success and momentary impulsivity. And then after we had our data, we completed regression analyses to determine a relationship between time and depression and our outcome variables. So overall, we found that longer time in remission predicted lower levels of negative affect, affective instability, spontaneous mind wandering, and perseverative cognition, and greater perceived success with regulating affect. So here you can see all of our graphs, and you can also see the R values to figure out the effect sizes. And overall, we're hoping that this kind of research impacts treatment selection in the future, as well as a greater understanding of how we can use EMA surveys to study like in time fluctuations, like while they're happening or right after they happen, which is an important aspect of like everyday life functioning. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
That's good. That's a great finding. Any questions? Do you know for different people in this sample, like what's the opposite of remitting? Like when you have depression again, did any of them like have several episodes? And were there differences across people that had several episodes versus just one episode?
Yeah, no, that's a super great question. So I think that might be a 2-part answer. We did have adults in our sample who had multiple episodes of major depressive disorder, but we didn't analyze that data, although I think that would be a really great future analysis direction. But all of our participants had to be remitted, so no one could have active depression or active depressive symptoms. But we have another study where participants do have active symptoms, so that might also be something interesting to look at.
I was going to ask something, I guess a little bit similar, and you've touched on it a little bit because you said they don't have active depression symptoms, and I'm kind of wondering like the extent of that. Did you have any kind of measures of state depression or anything like that? And did it seem like some of this stuff also kind of varied based on their state symptoms of depression with like the BDI or something like that? Or yeah, or did you not kind of capture that or not see a relationship there?
Yeah, no, that's a super great question. So the first session of our study is when we do the clinical interview, we use the DIGS, and within that they have measures for examining depression, current depression, as well as past depression. And then we also use the BDI, and then we also measure anxiety and stress levels as well. So those are kind of the ways we ensured that people matched our eligibility. But I do think that there would be differences based on like if someone has active depression. So I think an interesting direction for our other data set where we do have people with active depression would be to kind of see that difference between people with remission versus people with active depression. That's a great question though.
Okay, that was excellent. Thank you very much. And now our final talk, Alyssa Carrasco, unraveling parent-child conflict using topic modeling to explore co-occurring themes and their relationship to attachment style.
Thank you. Are you all able to see that all right?
Great. So hi everyone, my name is Alyssa. I'm from the TIES lab over at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm excited to talk to you today about my poster, which focuses on using topic modeling to explore co-occurring themes in negative family interactions and their association to attachment style. So within the literature, there's been a lot of inconsistencies between parent-reported and child-reported conflict topics. And so the current study aimed to explore those, or use topic modeling to explore the negative family interactions and detect different topics or themes throughout audio transcripts that may be points of contention. And so we utilize questionnaires to assess child's attachment style as either being secure, anxious, or avoidant. And as part of a larger study, participants also completed audio recordings twice a day for 30 minutes a day. And so we used detected topic fitting to see the different topics that arise in the transcripts, and 10 prominent topics emerged. And you can see 2 are highlighted here in red, and it gives us key terms that arise in that topic and the frequency in which they occur in that given topic. And so it gave us some insights into different themes such as locations, like school or work, or also times of day like the morning, bedtime, that were more frequently occurring in negative family interactions in their daily lives. And we were also curious to see how attachment may play a role in this. So we ran t-tests to see the differences amongst the attachment styles, and the t-tests were statistically significant and showed differences among the secure, avoidant, and anxious attachment styles. So overall, we gained some insights into the different topics of contentions for families in everyday lives. However, for future directions, it would pair this with also self-reported conflict topics for parents and children in order to validate this approach as well. And yeah, lastly, we'd like to acknowledge the grant that supported this work and the references listed as well. Thank you.
That was really cool. Thank you. Questions?
I definitely have a question. I love this. I do some topic modeling and question about how you defined your documents. So you said you used speech to or audio to text or whatever transcription software. Did you define your documents as the full conversation, or did you break it out by participant? And like, was it all of the kids' speech is one document and all of the parents' speech is another document? I'm wondering if like one side, if there's discrepancies between what they're reporting, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe one side's trying to make one point and the other side is just talking past them about something else. Like, how did you manage that aspect of the conversations?
Really great question. Well, to start off with, yeah, we did use Microsoft Azure to do audio to speech transcription. And then within the documents, since families in everyday lives, they have a lot of topics they talk about throughout the day. We did identify kind of the audio files and the snippets that were coded by RAs as having negativity. So it encountered a negative family interaction. The transcripts did have both the parent and child simultaneously in the documents, but future studies would be interesting to see kind of separated and kind of maybe a time series analysis to see if like parents' speech first maybe influences the child's ones and vice versa. Yeah.
Really cool work.
Thank you.
More questions for Alyssa? Okay, thank you very much, Alyssa. So we have about 5 minutes left. I want to encourage everybody to ask the speakers who I've just posted in chat for a copy of their posters. So you can like read them in more depth, because as I said, I don't know where we're going to find these posters, and there's a lot of good information there. So everybody gave amazing talks. I want to thank all of you very much. And with the rest of this time, you can ask the speakers questions, like maybe you could just chat them personally, or you can just ask via the voice chat because we have 5 minutes. All right, thanks again.
Yeah. Can I ask a question here? Sure. Yeah. So I'm Uzair Bajwa. So I'm founder of digital mental health startup. So my question is, so I'm working on the ecological momentary assessment, leveraging different standards using FHIR for interoperability and creating applications for that, making sure it's reproducible and they're both interoperable. But the challenge has been the public to private, say all these research has been done in public side, universities. How is there a better collaboration that one can leverage either, or is sort of a partnership where from the private sector, I'm a one-man army, so I don't have much resources. So what's the best way of collaborating and reaching out and see if there's synergies or there's some overlaps, and to make sure we are, making the path forward and making progress. I don't know if this is a relevant question here or not, but I just thought I'll ask.
I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, but I think one good way to like foster connection and like collaboration is to reach out to researchers and ask them what EMA like tools they use, like specifically apps and stuff like that. Like for example, my lab uses Mima, which is an online platform that you can pay for, and it collects EMA data. So you can ask researchers what they use, and then also like kind of have a conversation with them about what are the pros and what are the cons of these tools that they're using, and then you can use that to inform your approach. I think that's probably a good way to move forward. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in as well.
I guess I just add that, I'm a PhD student in clinical psychology, and I'm always looking to, build more collaborations and meet more people. And I know for myself, and I imagine many people, if someone reached out and were interested in collaborating, I would probably be pretty excited to do that.
Perfect. And how do we, how does one reach out to you guys? Is it a normal channel or preferred?
I guess in general, and kind of my approach is if I read a paper or find someone I'm interested in, usually their email or the email of the corresponding author is available, or you can, look us all up on our university web pages and get our emails that way.
Good. Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.